Hello, I found this article here in the Telegraph yesterday. Pride flag on altar of Church of Woke triggers almighty court battle. I want you to pay attention to this. The altar cloth is a pride flag. I believe they changed that. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's this now. They did a new one. Tonight we blessed our incredible new altar frontal, a gift beautifully handmade by Margaret from whatever in Loughborough. They noticed that our altar frontal was a cheap Progress Pride flag held on by sellotape and surprised us by making something a little more permanent. I'm assuming this is the more permanent, but I'm not sure. I don't know which one, but they've got this now. And I wanted to talk about flags in churches. Now, you do find flags in churches. You find regimental flags from local regiments. You even find union flags. I'm talking about trades union. And you may find even union flags, especially during time of war. But they're on the walls. They are not on the altar. And I should think, I've never seen a union flag draped over an altar, but if it were, I'm quite sure there'd be a big kerfuffle about it. And yet here's a pride flag. And what are we looking at here? When you pray, if you kneel or you stand, you are facing the altar and you are showing respect to the altar as well as to God. So basically what you are doing here is you are praying, in this church, praying to a pride flag. So now, because I know somebody's going to say, well, yeah, but it's a flag. It's a flag like all the other flags, like the Union flag, for instance. But if it were the Union flag, that would be a symbol of our country. This is a symbol of a sexual orientation. And sex is one thing you shouldn't be bringing in to religion. As a matter of fact, primitive religions use sex a lot in their observances. In biblical times, there were temple prostitutes, weren't there? There are many. In fact, Satanism involves sex as a form of worship of Satan, and that's because we know that we are not supposed to have sex in the purity of a godly religion. Look, I'm not arguing for and against this. I'm just saying how the practices have worked themselves out. Hang on, my hair's in my eyes. So what we are doing here is bringing sex directly onto the altar of a church. And it's quite shocking, isn't it? Why would you bring in somebody's sexual proclivities to a place of worship? That's just not the place for it. When we are worshipping God, whatever, the people who want to worship God, they want to worship a higher spiritual being. And this is being pushed at them. Senior clergy to settle row over banner in St Nicholas, Leicester, as objectors claim its move will bring the church into disrepute. Claim? Yeah. If I walked into a church with that on the altar, I would walk straight out again. I mean, if I had to do any worshipping there, how could I possibly worship that? I have gay friends. I have no problem with them. But I don't wish to worship them or their particular sexual orientation, no more than I would like them to worship my sexual orientation. And I am interrupting myself to tell you I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds, and I let you know when I've uploaded a new video on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Granniopteryx. Please like this video and you can share it and check your subscription. If you're subscribed already, sometimes subscriptions drop. If you're not subscribed, please do, but liking is really very important, so please click that like button. Also, you can help my channel by contributing financially, buy me a coffee, or a couple of other links there. All of this is in the description. Right, back to church. St Nicholas Church in Leicester is so steeped in history that a chunk of, well, a 1900-year-old Roman wall still adjoins its churchyard. However, the Anglo-Saxon era church, which is among the 10 oldest in Britain, now features a very modern addition. A rainbow pride flag on the altar has triggered the first court battle of its kind within the so-called Church of Woke. Well, I'm glad finally somebody is pushing back. You do find altar cloths on altars and they have symbols. But generally their symbols maybe of some higher ideal, you know, some symbols that might symbolize purity or Christ even, you know, that's a novel idea, isn't it? But not somebody's sexual orientation. In fact, as I say, sex is supposed to be out of this. St. Nicholas, I thought he was dead. I think they mean the church, but I don't know who. Speaking for St. Nicholas, someone said that the LGBTQ-themed altar is a profound invitation for those excluded by the escalating round the Church of England over sexuality, marriage and gender. Now, this isn't an invitation. This is a compelling of the congregation to worship the sexual orientation of the LGBTQ plus whatever people. When you come into a church, you are supposed to put all that aside, whatever your sexual orientation is in there. You go in with, you go into the church with the idea that it's your spirit that's being catered to. Your spirit in relation to God. Unless you have really odd ideas, you shouldn't be having any ideas of sexual identification when you're thinking of God. However, hundreds of churchgoers within and beyond the Diocese of Leicester, even clergy, are trying to block it with objection letters saying it will bring the church into disrepute and close the door to worshippers. Yes, it will. It won't close the door. It'll repel them. Because, as I said, I would not go in there for any sort of religious service with that flag there. Because I have no intention of worshipping a pride flag. The row began last September when St Nicholas announced that the pride flag... Why are they saying St Nicholas? Somebody announced it. The church is a heap of stone. That the pride flags it hung from the altar at weekend services were replaced with something a little more permanent. A huge Progress pride flag made of fabric. It was gifted by a congregation member at the All Saints with Holy Trinity Church in Loughborough, which rewrote A Christmas Carol to be inclusive. I did actually read that out to you earlier on in another video. People were actually weeping in the pews when they saw it. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be weeping in the pews though. I'd be outside maybe, swearing and kicking the walls. A local transgender poet and the warden of St Nicholas Church. I think maybe he's saying that he disagrees with this. Or she. They say transgender, I don't know which direction. Last October, the church was forced to take the pride altar frontal down and apply for planning permission. known as a faculty that it should have sought initially. With hundreds of protests flooding the Archdeacon of Leicester's inbox from churches around the country and the world, it's been sent to the Consistory Court, the Church of England's ruling body, where the Chancellor of the diocese will rule imminently on whether the pride altar can stay. Well, you know, if they do, they're going to lose a lot of parishioners. Sam Margrave, a member of the General Synod, the Church of England's governing council, who has led the campaign, fears an infiltration in the church of moral anarchy, where they're tearing down biological sex and the idea of monogamous marriage. I would disagree with him there. I would say that when you're in church, you're worshipping God. In your church, you're worshipping Christ. You are not worshipping a pride flag. And you are not concentrating on the sexual orientation of other people, or yourself indeed. You are concentrating on your spiritual connection with the deity, however that route, however you see that route. He says here, people come to church to get away from culture wars and find sanctuary. I want to welcome the gay and lesbian community, but there are better ways to do it. Yeah, you just welcome the gay and lesbian people by not making a fuss about them, by letting them come in and pray, because that's all you're interested in. That's all you should need to do. Yeah, and they say it's no more appropriate than putting up the flag of a political party. It's actually considerably less appropriate, in my opinion, but I wouldn't put up a political party's flag either. And I'd probably walk out if there were a political party flag. That reminds me, of course, of the Nazis who put Nazi flags all over the place, including in churches. And people were forced to go to church and worship the sign which had been previously a perfectly innocuous symbol of good luck and had been turned into a horrible political philosophy, the swastika. So instead of Nazi ideology at that time is gender ideology, and there is no difference in as much as you are putting a physical barrier between your worshippers and God by inserting a symbol of something that doesn't belong in any sort of worship. The altar is deemed to be the most sacred part of the church where the Eucharist is consecrated. The custom is for it to be adorned with white sheets normally, or green, purple, gold or red sheets on some occasions. Yeah, and sometimes you get embroidered altar cloths. I believe that one church discovered that the altar cloth it had been using for hundreds of years was actually made out of a dress that had been given to a local aristocrat by Queen Elizabeth I, and that was embroidered with all sorts of intricate embroidery on it. But that was it. It was decoration. I think I'm not sure, but if it was like roses and those sorts of things, that would be a symbol of England as a country. But I don't know what it was embroidered with. And that's as far as the symbolism would have gone. Okay, well, yeah, the Bishop of Leicester has privately given his opinion, it says here, but it doesn't say what. The church has gone mad. Now, I keep on saying this, but Justin Welby keeps coming in for my criticism. It's his leadership that has caused this. Obviously, he didn't say to the church, put a pride flag on the altar, but he has given enough latitude to people with totally nutcase ideas that this person felt empowered. I was at the Edinburgh Festival a few years ago, and I went to one church where there was a performance going on in one of the chapels. But the rest of the church, obviously the vicar was very much involved with the Palestinian cause, and the whole church was filled with things Palestinian. I thought, where's Christ in all this? There was a whole section, one chapel full of Palestinian handiworks, and the main part of the church was posters and things like that. There was absolutely no room for Christ in there. The vicar had decided that he was going to worship Palestine rather than Jesus. So the whole thing was, it's not entirely new. You get mad vicars who have ideas about not worshipping God, about turning their congregation into acolytes of some other religion. This is, as I say, this was a few years ago, so it's not entirely new. And I don't think that was a Church of Scotland church either. I can't remember what sort of church it was. But as I say, this does happen. But this is the Church of England. It's the establishment church. They should have more sense. Right? Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.